Good evening, I'm Pauline Verzosa.
I'm Shawn Yao.
I'm Edgar Erice sitting in for Ces Oreña-Drilon. The big stories tonight. The Interior Secretary asked for the help of Filipinos worldwide to help locate former Congressman Zaldy Co, now believed to be holding a second passport and hiding out in Portugal.
And the Commission on Audit flags the country's top two officials, President Bongbong Marcos for foreign travel advances and Vice President Sara Duterte for livelihood program grants.
And the House suspends Congressman Kiko Barzaga for 60 days over disorderly online behavior. The Cavite 4th District Representative joins us later on here on the show.
We believe he's holder of 2 passports. Not only a visa but 2 passports. Nakiusap kami sa lahat ng mga Pilipino sa buong mundo na kung makita nila si Zaldy Co, kung pwede nilang picturean, padala kagad, i-post kagad sa internet para may idea tayo kung nasaan siya.
Interior Secretary John Vicremulla is calling on Filipinos overseas to help in the arrest of former Congressman Zaldy Co. Co, who is now considered an international fugitive, is believed to be holding a Portuguese passport. Remulla explains that Co may have acquired this through Portugal's Golden Visa Residency Program. This program grants visas to foreigners who invest at least 500,000 euros or make a minimum donation of 250,000 euros to cultural or arts initiatives in Portugal. The Philippines currently has no extradition treaty with that European nation.
Nakiusap kami sa lahat ng mga Pilipino sa buong mundo na kung makita nila si Zaldy Co, kung pwede nilang picturean, padala kagad, i-post kagad sa internet para may idea tayo kung nasaan siya. We believe he's holder of 2 passports. Not only a visa but 2 passports. So, doon yung may complication tayo ng konti.
Remulla says efforts from the DILG and the Justice and Foreign Affairs Departments are underway to ensure Co's arrest. The Interior Chief adds that Co's passport had already been canceled. This was immediately corrected by the DFA, which says that it is yet to receive any court order to cancel Zaldy Co's passport. Meanwhile, Remulla says that all those involved in the flood control scandal will soon be arrested now that their cases are with the Ombudsman. He stresses that this time, bigger fish will be caught.
The Ombudsman will file the necessary cases in his own time, and after that, when they have a warrant of arrest, we will get them. 100% we will get them. Ngayon, papunta na tayo dun sa Pating at Balyena. Doon na tayo papunta. Okay. Malapit na yan. Bigyan natin ng Ombudsman ng karapat-dapat na oras. Kasi si Ombudsman meron siyang ethics sa pag-file ng case. Gusto niya may reasonable case, reasonable certainty for conviction. So hanggang hindi niya final yan, ibig sabihin, hindi siya sigurado. So pag-file niya, ibig sabihin yan, sigurado siya mako-convict na lahat yan.
Meantime, President Bongbong Marcos talked about loyalty before more than 600 new soldiers. That's at the graduation ceremony at the Armed Forces of the Philippines this morning. In his speech, Marcos discussed different kinds of corruption that neophyte uniformed personnel could face. And now more than ever, the president says the AFP must not be distracted by such acts, especially since the military have a lot on their plate. That includes securing the West Philippine Sea, ensuring peaceful and orderly elections, and safeguarding the lives of families during calamities.
More than this, the AFP that you are part of now must always rise above politics. Your loyalty must not be for any individual or any faction, but only to the Republic. The time and effort that you have spent in this course has taught you that by becoming full-fledged officers, your integrity is carried in your uniform and rank. There will be moments when your integrity will be tested. Piliin niyo ang bayan. Piliin ninyo ang katapatan at ang kapayapaan.
Meanwhile, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro believes President Marcos is doing well in managing the country's affairs. This was her answer to Pablo Virgilio Cardinal David's challenge to Marcos. In his speech during the Trillion Peso March on EDSA yesterday, Cardinal Ambo told the chief executive to stop procrastinating and to start embracing command responsibility.
Dahil kayo na rin ang nagsabi sa inyong SONA, mahiya naman kayo. Ang panawagan namin ay simple lang. Magtrabaho naman kayo. Sinimulan na rin lang ninyo itong paglaban sa korupsyon. Patunayan ninyo na lulubos-lubusin ninyo. Hindi na kami papayag na gawin multo ang mga proyektong kailangan para sa pag-unlad ng ating bansa.
Some groups calling for Marcos's resignation also want the president to face the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI, and to testify on the flood control probe. They believe Marcos is now at the so-called weakest point in his presidency.
At his weakest? Ito ba bang panahon na to? Na siya po ang nagpaimbestiga? Hanggang ngayon po, maraming ginagawang aksyon para mapanagot ang dapat na mapanagot. Ang dami na po na napaaresto, marami na po rin na kinasuhan, marami na po na naibalik na pondo. Ito ba yung weakest?
Meantime, the November 30 anti-corruption protests were generally peaceful. In provinces, rallies were filled with prayers and calls for accountability among government officials. In Metro Manila, the crowd was a bit thinner compared to the first mass action on September 21, but the message was just as clear. Mobile Journal, Arles de los Santos with that story.
Tensions flared between some protesters and supporters of President Bongbong Marcos at the height of Bayan's demonstration on Recto Avenue in Manila on November 30. The man, identified as Roger Alcantara from Bacolod City, was wearing a red shirt bearing the image of the president. Several members of Bayan confronted him and told him to leave, but he refused. The exchange grew heated until the Marcos supporter eventually distanced himself from the group. As the protest continued, Bayan members smashed and beat a large effigy, a crocodile-tailed figure with the faces of Marcos and Vice President Sara Duterte. Aside from holding corrupt government officials accountable, the progressive group also wants Marcos and Duterte to resign. The protest on Recto did not last long after police blocked the area. In a separate incident nearby, Manila Police District officers intervened after a man with a covered face and chako tried to blend in with protesters. He claimed the weapon was for self-defense. Protesters denied he was with them, and police escorted him out of the area. During that protest, Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla arrived and stood on top of a barricaded container van. Several protesters immediately shouted at him. But Remulla appeared unfazed and flashed a peace sign, further irritating some of the protesters. The secretary said he did not take the cussing personally. He said he understands the sentiments of those protesting against corruption.
Wala naman dapat ikatakot eh. Dumuro nila ako, okay lang yun. Karapatan nila yun, di ba? But I will never fight back.
Meantime, rallyists at the People Power Monument did not let rains dampen their spirit to stand up against corruption. Several prominent personalities took the stage for the Trillion Peso March 2.0. They included Akbayan representatives Chel Jokno and Percy Sendanya, Liberal Party President Erin Tanyada, and Miss Universe 2018 Catriona Gray. Jokno underscored what he called the administration's outstanding debts, including the passage of the Open BICAM and the long-delayed anti-political dynasty law.
Utang sa tamang pamamahala kasi hindi naman sila marunong mag-good governance. Kaya tayo na sa 2028 ang magpapalit sa kanila. Tama ba? Marami pang utang itong administrasyon ito. May utang sila. Open BICAM, kaya nga nangyari ang mga insertion na yan dahil sinekreto nila ang BICAM nung pinakamalaki sigurong utang ito, yung utang nila sa anti-political dynasty bill. Papayag ba tayo na hindi may sasabatas yan? Oo, sisingilin! At sisingilin natin yung mga yan!
Catriona, meanwhile, issued bold challenges aimed at the Ombudsman and other key institutions.
And when corruption wins, yung mga nakaupo lang ang nananalo. Sila na ang nabubusog. Sila ang nakakauwi sa mga mansyon sa Amerika. Sila ang nakakabili ng designer bags.
No placards calling for the resignations of PBBM or Sara were seen as organizers emphasized their opposition to any form of military junta. Their message remained clear: hold corrupt officials into account and return stolen funds. The Trillion Peso March also featured performances from OPM artists Ben and Maki.
Patuloy tayong mga lampag para ipasa ng Kongreso ang batas para tapusin ang mga political dynasty! At sama-sama nating iboto rin ang mga tamang leader sa 2020. Tama ba yun? At alam niyo,
Attendance at the People Power Monument was notably lower compared to the September 21 rally. But according to political pundit Ronald Llamas, the reduced turnout was expected as yesterday's demonstrations were held nationwide.
Tuloy yung anti-corruption probe, magpakulong ng mga guilty ASAP, huwag matagal, at bawiin ang mga ninakaw. Pero gawin ito within the legal framework. Huwag pumunta sa installation ni Sara. Huwag pumunta sa isang military junta.
Protests were also held outside Metro Manila. At least 100 groups in Baguio City and Benguet took part in an anti-corruption protest. Participants also voiced opposition to local issues, including the supposed mollification of the Baguio public market. In Cebu, thousands of Catholics held a peaceful protest against government corruption, carrying rosaries and praying as they march. Participants also voiced anger over flood control failures that recently caused deaths and property damage in the city. Cebu Archbishop Alberto Uy also led a mass at Basilica Minore del Santo Niño, where he highlighted greed and the lack of God's presence in people's lives. In Davao City, progressive groups gathered at Freedom Park, Rojas Avenue, to protest government corruption in flood control projects. Also protesting against government corruptions are Antiqueños. They gathered at EBJ Plaza in San Jose de Buena Vista for the Bugtao Antique Peace Walk. Participants demanded transparency, accountability, and environmental protection, urging local and national leaders to prioritize the province's welfare and natural resources. Kapatid Arles de los Santos, we are One News.
And for our first guest tonight, we speak to Caloocan 2nd District Congressman Edgar Erice. Magandang gabi po, Congressman Erice, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Magandang gabi, Ed. Magandang gabi sa mga co-host mo at sa mga nakikinig sa inyong program.
You were part of the rally yesterday sa EDSA, sir. That was much anticipated. A lot of suspense leading up to November 30. But what follows after the November 30 rally? Are we seeing anything for December or January na po?
Well, wala pa namang plan, pero I'm sure there will be succeeding protest rallies maybe next year, especially February. 40 years yung it's
the
anniversary. I think that's the best time to hold another rally.
I asked that kasi siyempre the concern in a lot of people's minds is if you have a long delay in between mass actions, then you might have some sort of flagging interest in the issue.
Hindi naman siguro kasi alam mo, we are just on the tip of an iceberg. Marami pang lalabas ng mga revelations at maraming habang dumatagal ang mga palitan ng accusations, mas maraming questions na nabubuo sa isip ng mga tao. And I think that President Marcos should really explain to the people kung ano ba nangyari sa 2023, 2024, and 2025 GAA. Bakit pinabayaan niya na masalaula yung 3 taong budget ng kanyang administration? Ito yung lingering question kay President BBM. Kasi this is a question of competency or complicity. Either complicit siya dito sa pagsasalaula, gaya na accusation ni Congressman Zaldy Co, or pinabayaan niya yung kanyang pinsan na si Congressman Martin Romualdez.
That's what I wanted to ask you, Kong guys, satisfied ba kayo? Obviously, the lower house, pinaubayan nyo na sa ICI yung mga hearing, yung Senado nagpapatuloy. Are you satisfied with what they have done so far as well as the pace of how they have accomplished this? Or are you looking for bigger fish to be fried?
Without offending, with no offense meant, with the commissioners of the ICI, wala naman silang magawa. Kasi yung mga tao nila, DOJ, they are funded by the Office of the President. They are appointed by the President, and their term of office depends on the President. Unless na maisasabatas na, pinahil namin nila Congressman De Lima, ni Congressman Joke, no, na independent commission, yun ang truly independent commission. Pero nai-stall nag-marathon hearing kami, na-approve na sa committee, hanggang ngayon hindi pa nadadala sa plenary. Kung wala yan, I think ko, magiging washing machine lang ng Malacanang, yung ICI na yan.
Ano yung sense nyo doon, no? Doon sa ICP na gusto ngang isabatas? Because a lot of people are saying pwede namang gawin itong urgent or i-mark ng urgent ng Pangulo, pwede niyang i-pressure yung House. Do you get the feeling that that is not what is happening?
This is not what's happening now. Kasi alam ko nakapasa na ito sa Committee on Justice yata ng Senate. So the President can already certify it as urgent. Dito naman sa House, medyo 2 weeks na hinihintay namin na ma-calendar kasi pinangako ni Speaker D na yung yung Independent Commission Law Bill na ito ay matatapos before the session break of this December 18. Pero sa tingin ko, we have 7 days na lang yung aming session. So I don't think that it is possible now na maipapasa pa yan. So yan yung problema.
Well, speaking of the ICI, Kong, no, last week nag-recommend na nga sila ng filing of charges against more congressmen, against more legislators na may-ari din ng construction firms that have contracts with the DPWH or yung mga tinatawag na contractors. And there's even a report that 10% of House members could be connected sa mga contractor na yan. Congressman, ano po ba dapat ang gawin dito sa kultura ng contracting dyan sa Kongreso?
Well, kasi dapat merong sinasubmit na namin sa sala namin yung aming mga negosyo. Hindi ko alam kung bakit hindi nasala ito ng Kongreso. Siguro dapat sa Congress pa lang, nasa sala na yan kung merong mga construction business yung mga congressman at dapat hindi sila pwede mag-participate sa any government construction kumpanya nila.
Napakadali kasi nung sistema ngayon, all they have to do is divest, prove that they divested, no, Kong? Tapos ganun na lang. Pero at the same time, kung may mag-file naman ng bill na, kumbaga, higpitan itong rule na ito, do you think it's going to fly in Congress, both houses at that?
Well, yung competitive bidding, yun talaga yung dapat bantayan. Kasi kahit naman sino yung maging contractor, kung competitive ang bidding, talagang dumaan sa isang proseso ng pagpipresyo ng isang government contract, masisiguro na tama yung presyo. Pagdating naman sa standards, dapat talaga yung Commission on Audit ang may pananagutan dito. Ang nangyayari kasi, nakakalusog itong those projects, substandard projects, kasi pinapayagan ng Commission on Audit.
Sir, balikan ko lang yung question about the independent commission that legislators also want to pass and give more power to. We asked that last night of Undersecretary Claire Castro. Would the palace be interested in, for example,
certifying it.
Yeah, certifying is urgent. Such a measure that would, for example, give the commission power to cite in contempt, which it does not have right now. Ang sabi po ni Claire Castro kagabi is they will have to look carefully at that kasi, for example, the NBI and the PNP, they do not have the power to cite for contempt, yet they can do their own investigation and fact-finding and so on down the line. So mukhang merong hesitancy on the part of the palace to give that power.
Ang ano ko dyan, ang kapa ko dyan, baka yung mga mismong commissioners, baka mag-resign sila. Bakit? Kasi they will be facing a lot of, baka balikan sila ng mga charges kung mga dinidemanda nila, kung mga nagkahalongkat nilang mga documents sa mga contractors, kung wala silang immunity. And one of the features of this ICI law, mabigyan sila ng immunity from suit. pagdating dito sa investigation. Kasi napaka-unfair para dyan sa mga commissioner na yan. Lumalabas ngayon, baka matarnish pa yung reputation nila na they are doing handiwork for Malacanang. Tapos nakikita natin sila'y tagahanap ng mga nagnakaw sa gobyerno, pero hindi naman nila mga tao yung action na naghahanap, kundi DOJ din naman.
Bigla ko lang naisip, no, Kong Egay, nasuspend nga si Congressman Kiko Barzaga today over an ethics complaint. Hindi ba pwedeng gamitin yung path na yon? Kumbaga, isn't it also an ethics violation to be a contractor?
But
Or
suspension lang
have
magagawa
So,
No, they can also, they can result to, like what happened to RD Teves, pwedeng expulsion.
Yes.
Diba?
And anybody can file an ethics complaint against any congressman. Mas maganda siguro mag-file ng complaint sa mga contractors yung talaga may direct knowledge na sila ay contractors dun sa kanilang constituency. I'm sure meron ng mga kalabang politiko yan. It's time for them to file ethics complaints kung nakikita nila na yung mga congressman nila ay mga contractors.
But would that be fair, you think? Would that be a fair shake once tumating siya sa ethics committee? Hindi ba pwedeng masahihin? Or what if kaalyado nila, yung mga nakaupo doon? Opo. Go ahead.
Diyan masusubukan yung leadership ng House. Diyan masusubukan yung sincerity ng Congress para talaga disiplinahin yung ranks namin.
Kong, balikan ko lang po yung rally kahapon doon sa EDSA. One of the bigger criticisms of some people doon sa rally sa EDSA, sa People Power Monument is stopping short of calling for resignations, specifically of the president, and some would even say the vice president. And also the criticism by some, particularly the Duterte camp, na parang interesado kayong ma-impeach yung isa pero hindi kayo interesadong matanggal naman yung isa. So how do you address that concern?
Alam mo yung resignation, it's up to the president or to the vice president. Kung hindi sila mag-resign, wala namang kaming magagawa. Kaya nga ayaw din naman natin ng extra constitutional na manner of removing officials kasi magiging banana republic naman tayo, junta or military takeover. Meron namang constitutional process and that's impeachment. Anybody can file impeachments against the president or the vice president. So February 6 magtatapos na yung prohibition.
The prohibition.
So February 6, I'm sure ako sure ako yung makabayan lang file another impeachment case against the Vice President. Pero dapat pag-isipan din ng Presidente, baka meron din mag-file sa kanya.
Yes, sir. Actually, that's what I was trying to ask you. Yes, sir. Sir, given that, sir, what do you think are the chances of that happening? Of course, the Makabayan Bloc already said that expect an impeachment complaint to be filed against a VP again in February. What about the President? Do you think that that's going to happen as well?
Well, kasi unfair di ba? We're accusing the Vice President of investing
yes, sir.
120 plus million confidential funds at DepEd, 500 million. Pero Zaldy Co has accused the President of involvement in billions also of in blood control. So there are dalawang accusations yan. So unfair naman kung yung isang accusation ay hindi na iimbestigahan, di ba? Parang yun yung nakikita ko. And the only way that we can find out the truth is through an impeachment process.
Yes, sir. But let me add to that mix a bit of complication as well. Kasi next year is already 2026. That's only 2 years before the 2028 election. And you know how it is in the Philippines na the election season starts really early.
Yes.
Now, given the fact that the Duterte still have a sizable chunk of the population behind them, what are the chances that what would now appear, at least on the surface, to be a pro-Marcos Congress could shift gears by 2026 into a pro-Duterte Congress? And then you have the impeachment question.
with the political dynasties, madali yan. Madaling talaga mag-shift ng alliances. Actually nga, sabi ko, yung mga rara boys ni President Duterte noon, ay yun ang mga rara boys ni Speaker Martin, ang nakaraang Congress. So, nung nagpapalit-palit lang ng kulay, as long as, sabi nga, I'll scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. Yan yung prinsipyo ng political dynasties to maintain their hold in their respective localities. So, yan talaga. Kaya sabi ko, isa sa pinakamagandang siguro resulta nito ay magising talaga yung mga tao. Ang kailangan natin, political reforms, and one of which is the anti-political dynasty. No, I've been fighting that for almost 3 decades. Anong pinal ko yan? 2001. Sa 5 Congress na ako, nagpapile ako lagi. Pero the most that it reached was in 2015 when it was passed by the Committee on Suffrage and Electoral Reforms. Pero pagdating sa plenary, na-archive na rin. Kaya nga, ang plano ko, by January, kung hindi pa rin gagalaw yan, I will file a petition before the Supreme Court na sila na mismo, they make the rules. Kasi sinasalaula ng Kongreso yung Constitution natin, tingin ko merong obligasyon ang Supreme Court para itama ito. Almost 39 years na ini-ignore, binabastos ng Kongreso ang Constitution. So, I think merong makarapatan ang Supreme Court to define what is a political dynasty based on the legislative intent of the 1987 Constitutional Convention.
So you really
That's
think,
interesting, eh?
oo nga real talk, Kong Egay, do you really think may pag-asa ito, pumasa sa Kongreso? Based on, yun nga kasi based on today's context, no, itong mga flood control scandal, impeach ganito, very fractured, no, into 2 camps and then may undecided camp. Do you think gumagalaw yung Kongreso? Like, meron bang konting shift na mas willing sila ipasa tong anti-political dynasty bill?
May nararamdaman ako na lalo na yung mga kasi ang ginawa ko 2015. Kaya nakapasa sa committee yung pumayag ako, sige, kahit 2 na per family, wag lang yung walang definition nito, wag lang nating bastusin yung konstitusyon. Nakapasa sa committee. So, kaya lang talagang dapat na ma-define na talaga kung ano yung political dynasty. Kaya nga sabi ko, kung by January hindi ko kikilos to, I will file a petition sa Supreme Court. Kayo na yung mag-define. At I'm sure, pag nag-define ng Supreme Court yan, 1 lang per family. Mas mabuti na yung Kongreso magpasa, baka pwede pa talaga.
Teka, sir. So, sir, we're not lawyers here, pero how does that work? Can the Supreme Court write a law defining political dynasties and put in the penalties for that?
Because the Congress for 39 years refused mandate by the 1987 Constitution to pass an enabling law. So kung hindi makakapagpasa ang Kongreso 39 years, long overdue, wala pang gumagawa, itatry ko, baka pwede i-interpret na ng Supreme Court kung ano yung intent ng 1987 Constitution included in the provision of Article 2, Section 26, yung anti-political dynasty provision ng ating Constitution.
Well, Congressman, we're also in the midst of budget season and right now there are already talks no, na buksan ang BICAM sa publiko para mas masiyasat po natin, mas maging transparent. What are your thoughts on that and what are still some of your apprehensions when it comes to this budget process?
Well, I think the Senate will really go for an open BICAM. Kasi ang alam ko, nagkasundo yung mga senators, there will be no insertions. Even institutional insertions, hindi sila gagawa ngayong 2026. Ang masama lang dyan, meron naman talaga mga pangailangan. Ay, napasama yung insertions, amendments, hindi naman masama yan eh. For many years, for many administration, may mga insertions, kaya lang hindi kasing salaula ng 19th Congress. For 3 years, 1.45 trillion yung insertions. Noong panahon ni Pinoy, panahon ni GMA, meron din namang mga insertions. Pero maliliit lang yan. Pag si Pinoy, 1 billion, nako, maghihinit na ulo. No? Kasi meron naman talagang hindi mapo-project. Kasi nag-start yung budget process January. Tapos madadala yan sa Kongreso August. So merong mangyayari na unforeseen within 7 months na kinakailangan talaga na bigyan ng pondo. Ngayon, kung aalisin nila yung karapatan niya, maraming mga problema na kailangan bigyan ng solusyon, hindi mabibigyan ng solusyon. Napasama insertion because of the flood control. Alam mo, ang karamihan, pati yung PhilHealth, yung PDIC, yung mga foreign assisted projects na defund, yan yung dinala sa flood control. Kaya napasama yung insertion. Pero hindi masama ang insertion or amendment.
O nga, kung quick follow-up lang sa tanong ni Pawi, no, naglabas kasi yung PCIJ ng report right before the weekend or just on the weekend about allocables, so-called allocables being the new pork barrel. Comment lang po, Kong.
Well, alam mo, siguro hindi lang naintindihan. For example, in my district, nakikialam ako sa budget process. January pa lang, tinitingnan ko na kung ano yung ilalagay na pondo ng engineering district na nakakasakop sa aking distrito. Kasi maraming distrito yan sa isang engineering district. Pag mali, talagang magpuprotesta ako. Dapat din, inukonsulta yung local government ng bago talaga. At kaming mga representante, kami hinahanapan. Kami pagka-eleksyon, sinasabi sa amin, kung guy, binabaha kami dito for 5 years. O itong kalsada namin, 10 years nang hindi na papasimento. So, doon sa budget preparation pa lang sa local level, dapat nagpa-participate kami. Yun yung importante. Hindi yan totoo sa mga senador kasi wala naman silang local constituency.
Pero sir, yung PCIJ story naman does not insinuate that there was anything illegal per se doon sa allocables. It was more of redefining what is considered for the longest time as pork barrel na dating lump sum funds. Ngayon, it appears that yung allocables are now the new pork barrel in the sense that these are politically charged allocations. Given the fact that, for example, the number one congressman in terms of allocables in the last 3 years appears to be Congressman Sandro Marcos, the son of the president, and number 2 appears to be Martin Romualdez, the cousin of the president. Also, when you ipagtabi-tabi mo ninyo, Ilocos Norte with at least the district of Sandro with 320,000 population na 15.8 billion ang allocables for 3 years versus, for example, Rizal with 1.2 million population, half of that amount ang allocable. So may ganun po nga parang pamimili nung sino makakuha ng malaking pera.
Yes, kasi yung mga political dynasties, ganyan yung gawin nila. For example, during the time of the President Duterte, ang malaki, Davao. Ngayon, President Marcos, ang malaki, Ilocos Norte and Leyte. So yan yung problema sa hindi yung talagang ang basis ng allocations ay kung sino yung kung sino yung mga the powers that be, pero kawawa yung mga mahihirap na communities dahil kuminsan sila pa yung mahirap, sila pa yung naiiwanan.
Sir, sorry, balikan ko lang yung plano nyo next month. Was it next or January? January. Na kung wala pa rin sa dynasty. What exactly would you call that motion or petition that you will file with the Supreme Court?
Well, my lawyers are preparing that petition.
And is there a precedent for that? Has it ever happened before? Of course, we're curious because we're not lawyers.
It's the first time kasi it's the first time naman na yung Kongreso ayaw sumunod sa Constitution.
So you're petitioning the Supreme Court to force Congress into passing a law, or you're asking the Supreme Court to itself draft the law or draft the rules on
draft rules based on the intent, the 1987 Constitution. Kasi meron naman yung sa debate, matigyan lang natin yung debate
in the minutes.
Constitutional conventions, tapos tignan natin kung anong intent. Based on the intent, gumawa na lang ang rules.
So sila na mismo yung Supreme Court ang maggagawa ng
We cannot expect, we can no longer expect the Congress. parang ako nga nung aking privilege speech, sabi ko baka pwede naman against self-interest, for the interest of the nation, magbigay naman tayo. Pero kung hindi nyo gagalaw yan by January, ibig sabihin yung 70 to 80% ng Kongreso ng mga members of political dynasties will not act on this.
Okay, best of luck po. Caloocan 2nd District Congressman Edgar Erice. Thank you, sir.
We're just going to take a quick break, but coming up, President Marcos suspends a military rule that discharged an army captain who got permanently blind in the line of duty. We have details when the big story returns. Stay with us.
You're watching the big story here in One News. 2 of the 3 Sunwest construction and development executives being hunted by authorities have sent surrender feelers. PNP CIDG Acting Director Police Major General Robert Morico says their families reached out to authorities through back-channel communications. According to Morico, the executives initially did not want to surrender because they lacked the financial capacity to hire legal representation. The 2 remain in the country and hold high positions in Sunwest, but allegedly serve only as dummy officials.
May mga kamag-anak na lumapit. Siyempre, wala po silang personal na abogado and apparently parang napabayaan. So they're takot also. So if they're listening right now, we assure them na yung karapatang pantao po nila ay igagalang.
Meanwhile, the Independent Commission for Infrastructure met with various government agencies today to discuss its asset recovery plan. This is still over the multi-billion peso flood control project scandal. Among those discussed is the creation of an asset recovery database to record all assets of suspects and identify which ones need to be retrieved.
As you probably heard in yesterday's 1 trillion rally, the demand is still very strong for people who are involved I'd like to see them in jail. That's why this DILG is a very important mechanism to address the non-legal aspect of what we can do as agencies.
Present na rin kanina yung I think the dashboard for the coordination of the members. So dito na rin ho papasok sa dashboard yung mga request for documentation para mapabilis both the assets recovery, part of the DWG and the case build-up.
As of today, the Anti-Money Laundering Council has frozen 11.7 billion pesos in assets. A freeze order is also out for Zaldy Co's air assets. The Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines is already coordinating with Singapore and Malaysia, the last known locations of Co's 3 aircraft.
And Vice President Sara Duterte has vowed to continue fighting the greed of high-ranking officials in government. That is a statement that she made while presenting her office's year-end report. Duterte's remarks come as the flood control scandal continues to heat up, linking several officials, including lawmakers and even President Bongbong Marcos. Even the VP herself has faced allegations of misusing DepEd and OVP funds from 2022 to 2024.
Patuloy namin na ipapakita sa inyo na ang tanggapan ng pangalawang Pangulo ay mahalaga sa amin ang pagkakaroon ng plano, mahusay na implementasyon ng proyekto, paglaban sa korupsyon at tapang at malasakit para magkaroon ng kapayapaan at kaunlaran sa ating bayan.
In her year-end report, the Vice President positioned OVP programs as proof that it delivered services despite a budget cut. She highlighted her office's key programs, including medical and burial aid, disaster response efforts, and the Libreng Sakay program. On the day Duterte presented her office's accomplishment report, the Bagong Alyansang Makabayan or Bayan says it is studying a new impeachment complaint against the Vice President once the 1-year filing ban expires in February. The group is reviewing the Supreme Court ruling that voided earlier proceedings. Bayan's previous complaint, filed in 2024, accused the VP Sara of betrayal of public trust over confidential funds spending.
Meantime, the House of Representatives has suspended 4th District Representative Kiko Barzaga for 60 days, and that's over his reckless social media behavior. Earlier, the House Ethics Committee found Barzaga guilty of disorderly behavior and recommended that he be suspended for 2 months without pay. It also directed Barzaga to take down 24 social media posts within 24 hours. The Ethics Committee also cited the possibility of harsher penalties if such actions are repeated. The neophyte lawmaker was suspended in a vote of 249 yeses, 5 nays, and 11 abstentions.
The actions of Rep. Barzaga bring contempt, discredit, and disrepute to the name of the House of Representatives. His actions reflected negatively upon the dignity, integrity, and reputation of the House of Representatives as an institution of the members of the House individually and collectively.
Hindi po sa pamamagitan ng aksyong ginawa natin kay Representative Barzaga mababawi ang kredibilidad ng ating institusyon. What we need is to bring the public's trust back in this House, and this representation firmly believe that this move will not help us to move in that direction.
Congressman Kiko Barzaga says he will accept any sanctions that the House will impose, and he joins us tonight. Sir, welcome to the Big Story. Cavite 4th District Congressman Kiko Barzaga. Sir, mukhang pinatayan kayo ng microphone daw kanina.
Medyo natakot sila kasi si Marcos na yung binanggit ko doon, especially since he's the one who's most guilty of this flood control issue, which is where all the ethics complaint started.
Which Marcos are you referring to?
President Marcos.
Okay.
Why do you say that it started, your ethics issue started with the president's, I suppose, the flood control scandal?
Yes, it was in response to the criticism that I made against Speaker Martin Romualdez on the flood control scandal. And the flood control scandal is primarily made by President Marcos.
Well, and of course, sir, we understand what you're saying. We also have several groups saying the same thing.
Yes.
But my question then to you is, but the charges against you have more to do with other things as well. Like, for example, supposedly, lewd content and scantily clad women.
I mean, yeah, there's plenty of lewd content. Pero ibang congressman nga nahuling may kabit pero hindi sila na ethics complaint eh. It's about the timing of the complaint and why they would choose to do that, since if they were to create precedents where such things were to be regulated and when the ethics committee is capable of suspending, reprimanding, or even expelling politicians once they have a supermajority in Congress, then these types of things can be weaponized by future administrations, and that's the worst part about the ethics complaint. Because personally speaking, the suspension does not truly negatively affect me. It mostly negatively affects the institution as a whole because people are losing trust in Congress, and this will decrease the trust in Congress even more.
You mean people might think they're being so defensive?
Well, they are being so defensive because I'm the one who is planning to file an impeachment case on Marcos, and coincidentally, I'm also the one who happens to be suspended.
We just had you last week. You didn't say that yet. When did this idea?
No, I revealed it already. I posted it twice on social media.
Okay.
Once in October and once in November. So we're still gathering evidence, not just regarding Marcos's involvement in the flood control, but also his, Senator Amy Marcos's revelation that he is a drug addict, which is detrimental to our country as a whole if we have a drug addict as president.
So this impeachment complaint you plan to file, when do you plan to file it? And can you file? You can file it naman kahit na suspended ka,
Well, I'm not too sure about that because I didn't read the rules regarding suspended politicians.
Okay. But when are you planning to file it? Who is drafting it for you? You have lawyers?
Yes, we have legal teams, and we'll see when the time comes.
Kasi February 7 yung, the one-year ban on the impeachment of Duterte will expire. Are you hoping to do that, your filing, before February 7, or are you open to having it after February? Kasi things would change, of course, after February 7.
Things would definitely change, and more evidence would release, more people will release statements against Marcos by that time. So yes, once more evidence has been released against Marcos, and once public opinion against Marcos has gradually worsened, then that's when we can start filing.
Are you confident you're going to gather enough signatures for that?
Well, even if I don't gather enough signatures, that will already prove that Congress itself, a majority of Congress, is no longer serving the people, but rather serving the interests of the Marcos administration. And we've already seen that happen in this instance. This is showing the people what exactly is happening within Congress.
But tell us about the charges that you plan to file. Exactly what will be your basis for impeachment?
For impeachment, well, the revelation of the drug cases and the involvement of flood control anomalies, and an extra charge that's not revealed yet.
But the Constitution is very particular about what kinds of charges can be filed for impeachment.
Yes.
For example, betrayal
Betrayal
of
of public trust.
trust and so on down the line. So exactly how do you plan to go about this, and what kind of charges do you plan to file?
Well, it will be betrayal of public trust because that's very open to interpretation. That could be for anything.
For corruption and so on down the line.
Or even lying about the state of his drug rehabilitation or his involvement in drugs. That can also be constituted as a betrayal of public trust. So depending on what possible grounds you may find, we will still consult with our legal teams. But his involvement in the flood control anomalies and him being the mastermind in all of this, and also in his drug-related revelations made by Senator Amy Marcos would be the most stable grounds that we would have.
That's your most solid, you think?
Well, there might be more. We might
So,
find
but for now, 3 grounds.
We might find his footprints in the DPWH building fire. So that's also another possibility. Or the recent
you also
Senate fire
posted about that fire before, yung October fires, Quezon City.
Yes.
Where you said that the fire destroyed evidence linking lawmakers to the flood control scandal.
Yes.
What's your basis for saying that? I mean, that's among the things that's being taken against you. I don't think it's.
Yes, it's not within the ethics committee, but it's too much to be considered a coincidence that the city, the district office, which happens to have one of the most flood control problems, just happens to have a fire on the time when those problems are being investigated. And also the reason that they released for the fire, which is computer malfunctioning, that generally is not an actual cause of fire.
Are you actually investigating?
Your statement is not about suspicion. Your statement is an assertion that evidence was destroyed linking lawmakers to the anomaly. So it's not na baka merong nasunog na ebidensya. It's more of may nasunog na ebidensya, therefore...
well, why question when you can make direct statements?
Well, you make direct statements when you can prove it. But sir, do you have evidence to show that?
If I were to have evidence, would I reveal it now?
Well, you can tell us if you have.
It's a secret.
No, you can tell us you have. You can tell us you have without revealing the evidence.
Well, my answer to that would be a secret. We'll find out in the coming months.
So you're having someone look into it. Can
I
we
had
safely assume?
I had someone look into it, is what I'd prefer to say.
Okay. We'll take that for now.
Yeah, for now. Because
Kiko.
this is still a developing story, as we've seen.
Correct.
Recently, there's the Zaldy Co videos, and there's the recent statements made by Senator Amy Marcos, and then there's the recent removal of Executive Secretary Bersamin, and they might release statements as well. So regarding this, it's a developing story, and I want to also watch how the story develops before we reveal all of our cards.
Can I ask if you're assuming these things, or do you know something we don't na talagang magkakaroon ng mas maraming revelations in the coming days?
A smoking gun.
Well, I mean, there will be, but it also depends on where we want to take these revelations and how these revelations would actually bring Marcos to justice. Because right now, no matter what form of evidence you present against Marcos, even if you find actual evidence, there would be no possibility of imprisoning him as long as he holds a supermajority within Congress, as long as the people are still fine with him being president. But once the anger of the public can no longer be stopped, when it can no longer be de-escalated, when, like what happened during his father's time, when massive civil disobedience is starting to emerge, that's the time when we can actually start the Marcos impeachment. That's the time when we can actually start bringing Marcos into justice.
But if you're saying that actually you got suspended, not for all these reasons that were stated in the complaint, but because nilalabanan mo si Marcos, does that not imply that he still holds a supermajority in the House? Or do you feel that the ground is shifting? Or do you know whether or not the ground is shifting?
Well, he still holds a supermajority within the House. That's still true. But the ground shifts very rapidly, especially in times like these. And there are people within the House that voted for suspension but not expulsion. There are people who prefer expulsion. There are many different voices within the House that are voting. And a vote of yes does not necessarily mean that they are in support of Marcos.
So you mean they actually put to a vote whether or not to expel you?
No, not yet, but there are people who are calling for the expulsion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Kong Kiko, you did say before plenary that you are willing to accept any sanction imposed by the House of Representatives. That includes a 60-day suspension. Tell us what you plan to do during those 60 days. And we heard walang pay, walang salary during those.
Well, yes. So since I have no salary, I won't be able to pay rent. So I'll be in a cardboard box outside my house. Outside of my house. Yeah, I'll be in a cardboard box, and then I'll eat and sleep there. And since I don't have a salary, I no longer have money. So I have to eat cup noodles every day now.
I know you're being facetious, Kong Kiko.
That's why I'm very happy that you provided free water for me.
No, sir, that's not free. Sir, let me ask you this. Teka, it's based on what you were saying a while ago. It seems that a lot of the assertions that you're making are not based on what you already have. Kasi sabi mo kanina, kasi baka may lumabas pa mga ibang ebidensya, like for example, Bersamin might still talk and all that.
No, there will be more evidence that will be released.
By you or by somebody else? I asked that kasi nga, it appears that you've made some assertions that are not yet based on something you already have, but something you're still hoping to come out. As you said a while ago, based on what may still come out from people who were taken out by the president, for example, Bersamin, and so on down the line. So, parang hindi mo pa hawak. Parang you're hoping pa lang na may lalabas.
No, but that's exactly like you have a cow. You know that it will produce milk at some point. It's only the logical conclusion of nature as to what will happen. When Marcos already throws away the people that he trusted to help him steal the money, then they will eventually start going against him, as what we've seen with Zaldy Co.
That's being very optimistic.
It's also more than that.
I mean, a cow is somebody that will give you milk if she's, I suppose, pregnant?
No, not necessarily, but you know, the amount of milk also depends on, you know, how comfortable the cow is, how well you feed it, etc., etc. Do you play classical music?
But there are certain...
Yeah, it's true.
There are certain laws, not just of nature of animals, but, well, humans are technically animals, so also within the nature of humans, that once it is within their self-interest to bring down the Marcos administration and to show Marcos that he must...
That's okay.
To show Marcos that he must face accountability for his crimes, then it will also, they will start serving in their best interest in doing so. Just like what we did with Zaldy Co. Zaldy Co has been complicit in what Marcos has done, but at the same time, Marcos has also thrown him aside.
Kong
Or betrayed him.
Going back to your suspension, the Ethics Committee warned harsher penalties, such as expulsion, if you continue your disorderly behavior. Will you be changing your ways on how you conduct yourself on social media?
Well, no. The thing here is that if you allow this to change your ways, then that's basically the same as allowing them to continue stealing and continue with the corruption that they're doing. If you were in the position of, say, Bonifacio or Rizal or even Ninoy Aquino, when you are granted the ability to stop criticizing the administration in exchange for a comfortable life, would you take those?
So you're ready to face expulsion?
More than that, I'm ready to face even imprisonment or assassination. If Marcos wants to silence me, then the surest way to do it is to do the same thing that his father did to Ninoy Aquino, which is, you have to kill me if you want me to be quiet. And that's a very direct statement to President Marcos. I want him to know that the only way that he may silence me is if he were to kill me.
Okay, well, we'll have to...
The same way his father killed Ninoy Aquino.
Anyway, we will have to leave it there because we're out of time. It's already 8:29. Maraming salamat for joining us this afternoon or this evening for the Big Story. Cavite Congressman Kiko Barzaga.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you, Kong.
Huwag ka muna tumayo.
All right, now in other news first, the Commission on Audit has flagged over 40 million pesos in foreign travel advances made by the Office of the President, still uncollected as of December last year. In its annual audit report, COA said the unpaid amounts came from several agencies and local government units that joined presidential trips since 2022. Now, the expenses were incurred during state visits to multiple countries, including China and the United States. COA noted some accounts have been outstanding for over 2 years, far beyond the 30-day settlement rule. The state auditors also flagged the Office of the Vice President for delayed liquidation of grants under its Magnegosyo that they or TADAI or MTD livelihood program. The commission reported that 31 individuals and 11 NGOs and CSOs received over 2 million pesos in total assistance but failed to liquidate on time.
President Bongbong Marcos has ordered a review of the military's complete disability discharge or CDD policy following the case of an Army officer blinded in the line of duty. The directive came after Captain Jerome Jacuba, who lost his eyesight in a 2016 clearing operation in Maguindanao, shared a viral video recounting experience and formally saying goodbye to the service. A CDD removes personnel from service due to permanent injury that prevents them from returning to duty.
Ako po ay pumasok sa sundalo na buo, kompleto. But ngayon po, lumabas ako na wala nang paningin. Subalit, ang sabi ko po ay hindi nawala ang aking paningin. Ibinigay ko lang po ito sa ating bansa. Isang karangalan po ang mabulag para sa ating bayan. May silbi ang aking pagkabulag. Para po yun sa inyo. Maraming salamat po sa inyo.
Marcos says Jacuba's case shows that wounded soldiers should not simply be released after risking their lives. And with this, he instructed the Department of Defense to review the rules and craft a new policy to ensure similar cases are handled with better support and recognition. The chief executive also announced Captain Jacuba's promotion to major, calling it recognition for his sacrifice in his service.
Binigyan ko ng instruction ang ating Chief of Staff na isuspindi na yung CDD ni Captain Jacuba. Bukod pa doon ay dapat ibigyan siya ng promotion dahil sa katapangan niya at gawin na siyang major. At maghanap tayo ng mga iba't ibang posisyon na pwede pa naman siya. Yung ating mga tinatawag na the major adaptive duties. Kasi kahit nabulag na po, marami pa ring duty na pwedeng gawin ng isang sundalo, lalong-lalo na sa isang sundalo na may 15 years na experience.
All right, and that's it for the big story this first day and first Monday of December. Thank you so much for watching.
We're back here tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. and we'll see you then.
Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time. Good night.